Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster Ankit Rajpara here. I welcome all of you to the special collaboration between Chess Neurons and ChessBase India. For this episode of Strategic Mastery series, I have taken all the positions from the games of the best and world number one, Magnus Carlsen. So let's get started with the first position. So Magnus had white pieces here and his opponent was Hikaru Nakamura, and this is from their Speed Chess Championship. Now, if you want to attempt this position, please pause the video here and then you can resume once you are ready with the move. So let's discuss about this position. So Carlsen is up a pawn. It's a good thing in this rook endgame. But in the rook endgame, you have to be careful that if your opponent is able to create some activity and if your pieces are not active, then despite being down a pawn, black can have really good drawing chances. So here, the king is in a check. So Carlsen has to move the king and he prefers activity over material. So he knows that if he is not able to get his king active, then it will not be easy for him to push for the win. So because of that, he plays king e4. He is ready to allow rook f4 check of Nakamura and then lose this pawn, but he is confident that because of his active rook, because of this pass pawn and the king that will get active, that will be enough for him to win the game. Then in this position, rook f4 was played, king e5, capture, activating the king. He wants to keep the king active. Then Nakamura played rook a4, no problem. Let's activate the rook with a check. Then king g6. Rook e8 is a threat, and also he deals with rook a6 check idea because there is f6. Then Nakamura played rook a8, now f6. So in this position, so there are ideas of rook h7 check and f7. And then they played a few moves. But then, so f7 check happened, this rook f7, rook f7. So here Nakamura resigned. So a really nice example of preferring king activity over material and then winning the game. So let's go for the next position. So here, Carlsen had white pieces. So an interesting endgame. Once again, if you want to attempt this position, please pause the video here and then you can resume once you are ready with the move. So in this endgame, as I can notice, Carlsen is down a pawn, but not to be worried because the queenside pawns of black are quite weak. This bishop is also restricted. On the other hand, look at Carlsen's bishop. The king is also in the center, quite active. Because of the pawn on f5, he's getting some space on the king side as well. So but there is one piece of Carlsen that is not doing as well as black's piece, and that is the rook. So this rook is staring at this pawn, but this bishop is defending it. So it's not like now it's able to do too much, and black's rook is actually on the open file. So if you talk about bishop, his bishop is active, his king is active, but rook not so much. So in this position, he played a move that would help him in activating his rook and making black's rook passive. So that is rook g1. So very nice move, improving the rook's position and putting pressure on that g7 pawn. Now what's the plan? So the only move in this position for Carlsen's opponent to stop defend the g7 pawn is to play rook g8. No problem, the rook has gotten passive. Carlsen continues with his idea of activating the rook gets on the 6th rank. What's the idea? Maybe he can go here and then do something. Maybe he can go here and then do something. And overall, that rook on g6 is restricting black quite significantly. And then h5 happened. So then king d5. And this was just, this is just showing you that how the game can go ahead, so we can improve the king. So in this position, the move is bishop d8. This is what Carlsen's opponent played, and then Carlsen played king d5. And then this is just a completely dominating position for him, and he went on to win the game. So please remember that try to activate all of your pieces in the endgame. Don't be happy with active bishop and active king. Try to activate your rook, and in such a manner that your opponent's active rook gets passive. So let's go ahead with the next position here. So this is white to play. Carlsen is white. Once again, his opponent is Nakamura. Now if you want to attempt this position, please pause the video here and resume once you are ready with the move. So let's look at this position a bit further. So it's equal material, but black has double pawns on the queen side. Now white has this nice pawn majority of 3 versus 2, so that's good. This is a pass pawn, that's also good, but it is being blocked for now. So whenever you have a pass pawn, the game is in endgame, then what you should try to do? You should try to push it. But we can't do that. Why? Because it is blocked. Another thing is, if we can create a pass pawn, that would be great. So can we combine those two? Maybe something that can help us in pushing this pawn, and maybe something that can help us in creating a pass pawn. And we indeed have a move in this position, and this is exactly what Carlsen played. He played g4. The plan is very simple. He wants to play f5. Now, rook f8. So this pawn is under pressure and f5 cannot be played. No problem. The rook was not doing much. Let's bring the rook over here. And then f5 can be played. And if he is able to play f5, then there will be connected pass pawns. And in this position, knight g7 was played to stop f5. No problem. What the knight was doing? The knight was stopping this pass pawn from being pushed. So it's time to play e6. Look at this bishop now. Also the knight is under pressure. Kamura played knight e8 in this position. Carlsen played f5. With this active bishop, active rooks, and more importantly, these connected advanced pass pawns. That's too much for Nakamura. And later on, Carlsen went on to win the game. So this was about creating another pass pawn and unblocking your existing pass pawn. So now let's go to the next position. So in this position, Carlsen had black pieces and his opponent was Vidit Gujarati. So let's try to, by the way, before I start discussing the position, if you want to attempt this position, please pause the video here and you can resume once you are ready with the move. So now let's try to understand this position a bit further. So as I can notice here, black is actually down a pawn. So, but on the other hand, this bishop is a bit active. By the way, we have a dark square bishop, and with its dark square pawn on a3 is fixed. So let's say if pieces get exchanged, and then there can be some ideas like this as well. We have to keep an eye on that. There is also very nice b3 outpost square available for the knight. So because of these reasons, I'd say that black has some activity. And by the way, while trying to think of those things, we should also not forget about our opponent's ideas. Knight takes d6 could be a danger. So we have to be a bit careful about that. So Carlsen actually dealt with that in a really nice manner. He played queen a6 in this position. So what does queen a6 do? So queen a6 actually defends the pawn and then attacks the knight as well. So he activates the queen, we can say, with a tempo. And with it went back knight d2. So now what should we do? So activity must always remain. So in this position, Carlsen played. So this is black to play here. Carlsen is black and his opponent is Vidit. Now let's try to understand this position a bit further. And before that, those who want to attempt this position, please pause the video here and then you can resume once you are ready with the move. So as I can notice from this position, Carlsen is down a pawn. But on the other hand, he has this active bishop. So let's say if the pieces get exchanged, then there can be this type of ideas as well. Carlsen's knight is also active. It can go to this b3 outpost square. So basically we can say that he has some activity. And also we must not forget about our opponent's immediate ideas, that is this pawn is under pressure. So let's try to understand how Carlsen created further activity to put pressure on this. So in this position he played queen a6. So queen a6 defends this pawn and also activates the queen and attacks this knight as well. So that's a good thing. Now let's say if instead of knight d2, if Vidit had played queen a2 defending this, then there would be some problems because there is this knight takes e4 in some cases. So that pawn is also under pressure. Now what to do? The queen is active. So Carlsen goes for more activity. So he exchanges this bishop. Now why did he exchange that active bishop of his? Because he recognized that after exchanging that bishop, he would be able to put more pressure on Vidit's king side, that is by playing queen e2, because he is able to get that queen in there. Now what happens is, so some of you would be wondering that after knight d2, could we not have played queen e2 directly? There is a small problem in this. There is queen f1. Now we cannot capture the knight because this queen is hanging. So that's the problem. So he played bishop into d2, knight into d2 and queen e2, making sure that queen f1 is not possible because this knight is under pressure. And then if knight f1, then this pawn goes, this is under pressure, this is under pressure, and then Carlsen went on to win the game. Let's see. So instead of that, if he had played, if Vidit had played queen c1 just defending this, then Carlsen has a really nice move available, that is knight b3, putting pressure on both the knight and the queen. And now Carlsen is still down a pawn, but Carlsen has the advanced pass pawn So you can play queen c2 and then just push it. So, but as I said, after queen e2, knight f1 was played, knight takes e4 happened, and Carlsen got clear advantage, and later on he went on to win the game. So this was a really nice example of putting pressure on the opponent by activating the queen and also dealing with their immediate ideas. Now let's go for the next position. So here Carlsen had white pieces, and if you want to attempt this position, please pause the video here and then resume once you are ready with the move. Now let's try to understand this position a bit further. So as I can notice, white's pawn is on g6, so definitely because of that maybe you can put some pressure on the king side. Black's king is in the center, right? Black has the double bishop advantage, but I mean, it's not the most important. If we want, we can capture that. So it's there. Since the pawn is not on f7, it is on f6. Because of that, this e6 pawn has also become weaker. Now, if I talk about black's ideas in this position, then I notice that if given time, maybe black might want to move the queen and then castle on the queen side, because that king is not completely safe in the center. So that could be one of his ideas. Now, how about white's position? So as I can notice, the king is already safe. The pieces are also more or less well placed, but there is one piece that we can notice is not doing that great. It is that knight on g1. It's still undeveloped, and Carlsen was not going to let that happen. So he wants to include the knight. Now, should knight f3 be played? Very natural move. Yeah, but he wanted to include the knight in such a way that the knight can also put pressure on black. Now what happens is, so it's not like the knight can get further active from there. So we should look at all the candidate moves of the knight. So he went knight h3. Why? Because the knight can go to f4. It can put pressure here. It can put pressure here. So there is definitely more improvement to be done of the knight when it goes to h3. So he played this. His opponent played queen d6, a nice prophylactic move to stop knight f4. That's not a problem. So now what Carlsen did, he played knight takes d5. Now if queen takes d5 was played instead, then there would be these ideas of a knight f4 at some point. This e6 pawn would also remain weak. So it's not that great. So his opponent played e takes d5. Now what? Now his opponent is actually ready to castle on the queen side. King in the center. We have to keep that in mind. And Carlsen played rook e1, stopping black from castling. And this is actually a really strong move, and Carlsen gets the advantage. Now, so let's see. So in this position, f5 was played. Now Carlsen actually, so one thing that we have to remember is that this is an online blitz game. So Carlsen played knight g5, and then not that he lost the piece, he has some activity after this, and then the position was really complicated here, and then eventually he went on to win the game, but it was not the most accurate move. So till rook e1 f5 it was fine, but in this there was no need for him to rush to play knight g5. He could have simply played king b1, so that if he plays something like knight g5, knight f4 or something, that would not come with a check. And because of black's king is in the center, this is not really preferable position for black to be in. So really nice examples from the games of Carlsen. So let's have a quick recap of those. So the first position actually was about, in the end game, king activity over the pawn. He played king e4 to activate the king and then went on to win the game. In the second example, it was about activating a least active piece and restricting our opponent's most active piece by playing rook g1. Then in this one, it was about unblocking our pass pawn and trying to create another pass pawn. Then in this example, it was about, even if we are down in material, but still we should remember about our opponent's weaknesses, and if we can activate our pieces with a tempo, then that would be great. And here, however the position is, please don't ignore your development, and if your opponent's king is in the center, then try to keep it there. So thanks everyone for watching the video, and please provide your valuable feedback in the comments. Lastly, don't forget to check chessneurons.com, your go-to platform for improving your positional chess. And I'll see you in the next video.